Hey, welcome back to another episode of Hillspring Marriage Matters. You know, several people reached out to us about our sex tape.
No, it is not. All right. Remember, we need to quit calling it a sex tape. It was a discussion on physical intimacy.
Yeah, and physical intimacy is another word for sex.
I know, but when we say sex tape, though, it unfortunately has a very, very different connotation. It's not like we recorded a sex tape like Kim Kardashian.
Well, yeah, but if I keep calling it a sex tape, maybe, we'll get a lot more viewers, and then we'll have people who want to be like advertising, and we'll just make zillions and zillions.
Yeah, we're already wealthy beyond belief. I don't think Kim's money, all the money that she has, can buy her the kind of happiness and contentment and joy that we've had over 42 years of marriage.
That was really sweet.
I know it was.
And you're right.
I know.
Okay, I'll quit calling it a sex tape.
Okay. So anyway, we did receive several comments or questions about our suggestion. It's easy for me to say. About our suggestion to read through the Song of Songs or the Song of Solomon. We'll use those interchangeably, but we suggested that to help kind of reignite or ignite some romance. Many of you commented it didn't really ignite anything except for confusion. That wasn't our intention. So today we just thought we'd try to provide you some context to the Song of Songs. Once you understand how it's organized and some of the imagery, it's a wonderful picture of two people in love and celebrating their godly union as husband and wife.
So couples have been using various means of expressing their love to one another over the centuries. I suppose if you're gifted at writing songs, or you like to write music to the songs, or maybe you can do all three. You can do write the music, write the words, and actually sing the song. That would be awesome. Singing to someone your love message would be so beautiful.
It would be. I don't sing, though.
Yes, you do.
No, not out loud.
So, other people might have spent time, money, energy in building big monuments to their loves. There's lots of ways that people express their love. We've found that probably one of the most popular ways that people express their love is through poetry.
Yeah, and who hasn't been kind of thrilled with reading some of those lines, like from the sonnet by Browning, how do I love thee? Well, let me count the ways. Or even from Edgar Allan Poe, this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and to be loved by me. She was a child and I was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with the love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee. We're romantics at heart when it comes to love and marriage. And gosh, I just appreciate all the poetry and the verses that have been written. Here's one from Roy Croft I really like. It says, I love you not only for who you are, but for what I am when I'm with you. I love you for not only what you've made of yourself, but what you're making of me. I love you because you're helping me to make the lumber of my life not a tavern, but a temple. Pretty good.
It's beautiful. So poems of love have a couple of things in common. First, they're extremely personal, and they at times, even if they're never meant to be shared with someone else other than the one that it's intended for, sometimes they can be made public. I remember a time being in school and having a crush and writing a note, and then it, pass it along. Teacher finds out and they open it and then they read it to the whole class. There's nothing worse than that kind of embarrassment when everything that was supposed to be private was made public.
Yeah, and so Lori and I actually have a book that we use, and over the years we've written love notes back and forth to each other, and it's just a way for us to kind of keep track. Sometimes quite frankly though, we won't write anything for a long time, and then there's a flurry of activity. But I've always been worried that someday one of our daughters is going to pick this up and read it. And the problem is they wouldn't read it as I or Lori has written in it. And so no one else can really read a love note the way that you intended to write it. So it's only meant for that person. The things in here that I've written are only meant for Lori and Lori only.
You see, the second thing about a love note is it's meant to be enjoyed, not really analyzed. So we say these things as a way to introduce you to the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs, however you want to refer to it. It's a love note between Solomon and his wife. And I would imagine Solomon's wife never dreamed that centuries of people would be reading their love note. I'm convinced that they had no idea that there would be people looking over their shoulders reading what they had intended for just one another. It's actually a lengthy love note of 8 chapters in our Bible, and it's really not meant to be analyzed, to say nothing of the abuse that is taken down through the years. Men and women have attempted to interpret this wonderful book in a variety of different manners, and they've come up with some really interesting ideas, but really it's a love note, when in reality it's simply a small vignette. It's this love relationship between a man and his bride in the days of summer.
And, sure, there's probably an analogy of Christ's love for his church that is kind of embedded into this poem or into this song, but I don't think when Solomon wrote it and his lover read it and then she wrote back to him and he read her words that was on their mind. I think it's just a simple love note. So let's look at it like that. Let's look at it as for what it really is. It's a love note between two people madly in love with each other. And then maybe from that, glean and maybe put into practice the importance of expressing our love to our spouse. We can draw from it some guidelines for our love relationships today and how we communicate it.
So I will try to break it down a little bit for you. First of all, there's some introductory information that might help you. Who wrote it? Solomon. The first verse assures us that it is his work. This is the Song of Songs. It's the most exquisite of all of his 1,005 songs. Yes, that's right. 1 Kings 4:32 tells us that he wrote over 1,000 songs, and this is his best of the best. This is a number 1 in his opinion of all the songs that he wrote. When was it written? There's not really a date given, nor do scholars really agree on the exact time. Solomon actually wrote 3 books in the Bible. They are the Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, and Proverbs, and they appear in the opposite order in the Bible. First we find Proverbs, and then Ecclesiastes, and then last Song of Songs. Many biblical scholars are of the opinion that he wrote the Song of Songs early in his life, when his love was warmed and innocent and beautiful and unscarred. Ecclesiastes was probably written midlife, possibly when he was experiencing some kind of crisis. And then he probably wrote Proverbs later in his life after he had gained a lot of wisdom through learned lessons, the difficulties along the way.
And so then the other question, well, why has it been preserved? Probably to show us the human side of life in the days of a king. I think sometimes it's easy to forget the humanity of great men and women. Song of Solomon really sees that the man, like all of us, was very human. It's a song that extols human love and exalts the affection between married partners. Just like we should exalt and extol the affection between ourselves. So then how should this be interpreted? We think literally. We think when you force upon it other interpretations, even as we said earlier, it's possible to see the love of Christ in his relationship to the church. That's not really the basis for interpretation. We think it's just simply the love of a man for a woman and her love for him. Throughout the book you will read of my darling, which is the reference to the woman, and my beloved, which is the reference to the man. And they dialogue back and forth in this love note, a love song to one another.
The language of the book is exceedingly intimate, and it's quite personal. It's the most intimate expressions found in all of the Bible. And we say that so that you would be more comfortable as you read over the shoulder of these two who are madly in love with each other. It will just warm the romantic fire inside of you. So let's unpack how this book is organized to help you understand it a little bit better. We have attached a chart in the description to help you visualize this better. One of the things to keep in mind is that this is very much a dialogue between two people in love. Many times the bride is the chief speaker and then the groom becomes the chief speaker. For example, you'll see the dialogue as it progresses through the Song of Solomon as the bride speaks as the chief speaker to start with in chapter 1 verse 2 and chapter 3 verse 5. And then he becomes the chief speaker in chapter 3 verse 6 through chapter 5 verse 1. She comes back and answers him in chapter 5 verse 2 through the 3rd verse of chapter 6. And he responds again as the husband in chapter 6 verse 4 through chapter 8 verse 4. Then both of them start basically singing together with one harmonious voice in the last part of the Song of Songs that they do together. It's really quite an expression of love.
Yeah, and so that back and forth is kind of how that book is laid out, similar to what Lori and I did, where I would write her a note and then she would use the next page to respond or write her own note. So that's how the book is laid out, and then it kind of follows their courtship and wedding and then their honeymoon and married life. And so the way the book is laid out, aside from the dialogue between my beloved and my darling, the courtship phase is really from chapter 1 through chapter 3, about verse 5. The emphasis is the bride thinking about and commenting on her groom, referred to, as we've said, my beloved. The next segment of the book is the wedding, which is chapter 3, verse 6, and continues all the way through chapter 5, verse 1. And in this section, the groom speaks tenderly and lovingly to his bride. The final segment of the book is about a maturing marriage, from chapter 5, verse 2, all the way through chapter 8, verse 14. And it's really divided into kind of 3 parts. First, how the wife longs for and describes her loving husband. The second part is how the husband speaks to his wife in intimate terms. And finally, as we said, both lovers declare a permanency on their love. The last part is kind of that duet or that harmony of both lovers speaking in unison, speaking in harmony with each other.
So we hope that this helps you to better understand this book a little bit and how you can read it together. As you read in it, think about the love that you have for each other. How does the Song of Songs reflect how you feel for your spouse? If you do study it together, we suggest using a Bible, a study Bible, or an amplified Bible. Using a study Bible will help with interpreting the imagery, because really the imagery is very unusual. It's not the kind of imagery that we would use today, and that's described a little bit more in the attached. It's not really a devotional this time, it's more of another delving into more explanation. Anyway, one last thing, consider picking up a small notebook like we have here and take turns writing love notes to each other. Don't worry if you're not the best writer, it's really okay. Your spouse will understand, and it will speak volumes to your spouse, because you just speak as though you write as though you're speaking, and it will speak volumes of love to them. So, and it doesn't have to be every day. You can try once a week or whatever seems to suit what's going on in your life right now. So we just know that you'll be blessed by it.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the one I wrote to you a couple of years ago, and holy cow, that was really good. You should read this one.
It's always good. I'll reread it.
You should. Anyway, gosh, until next time, really, write your love story. And as Lori said, you don't have to be a poet. Just write what your thoughts are about your spouse. Share those on a regular basis. I think in the busyness of the day and the busyness of life, we look at each other and go, I love you. Oh, I love you too. But we never take the time to sit down and write our thoughts out.
You gotta unpack it a little bit, because that's really where the good stuff is.
And so take the time to write your love story. We love you guys, and gosh, we're praying for your marriage. And as Lori said, attached to this, there's a little bit more of an in-depth study of the Song of Songs. Make sure you download that, and also download the chart that we found from a website called Insight for Living out of Dallas Theological Seminary. Really powerful, but it kind of outlines the Song of Songs a little bit more. So download those in the description below. And gosh, as always, leave us comments, or if you have a question, email us at hillspringmarriagematters@gmail.com. Until next time, we love you, and remember, your marriage matters.